This podcast is being recorded on Ghana land. We honour and celebrate the strong cultural traditions of motherhood, family and connection to country.
How Motherhood Changed Me is brought to you by Harrison Macmillan, Australia's leading recruitment firm run by women who live by values that make their mothers proud.
No woman can say motherhood hasn't changed her, but every mother's story is different.
I had all 3 kids, all vaginal births. The first time I had sex with Ryan, it honestly, it felt like feeding a Tic Tac to a whale. And I was like, I feel like that's the nicest way.
What an analogy.
To paint the picture. It was a nice way to paint the picture without being like too dirty and smutty. And it's a nice little visual. And I feel like anyone that's had 3 kids in 4 years will understand what I'm referencing. Yep. Not that Ryan is the size of a Tic Tac, but it was more that I felt like a huge, cavernous, hollow cave.
This is How Motherhood Changed Me. Hello, I am Kerry Turner.
And I'm Jenna Yates. Kez, before we introduce today's guest, I want to read you something.
Go for it.
Okay. With 3 very small children, I had the sex drive of a potato. Gone were the days where I would happily jump in the backseat of a car and sit on Ryan's lap. You couldn't have paid me to have sex anywhere that was remotely uncomfortable or cold, or that required me to take off all of my clothes. I turned into something of a starfish. I would still put out here and there, and once we were having sex, it always felt good. It was just that the feeling of wanting it had completely disappeared. For 4 years, I had put myself last, looking after the needs of my 3 kids first, and I just didn't have it in me to wax Ryan's sword. So, hard relate, but let's just throw straight to the woman who wrote this. Amy Gerard, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Your
Hello.
fabulous book, content creator, brand ambassador. Now you're a radio host.
Yeah, you're doing it
you
all.
do it all. But wait, I just want to show you. My son drew on your face.
What? He's giving me a clown face. That's how I feel. That's actually how I feel.
I was like, will she be offended? No, I'm going to bring her.
Not at all. To be honest, I have my own sons and they've torn pages out of the books lying around here, so I get it.
Yeah. Boys are a
Could
different
not care
beast.
less. Yep. Yes.
Now, Amy, we start all episodes with a question. Before we jump into the really fun questions, we have a little question. Can you give us one word to describe the woman that you were before you had children? One word.
Spontaneous.
Love that.
Ooh.
Yeah, love it.
Love that one.
Can't be as spontaneous when you're a mum,
No,
can you?
no.
Everything's planned.
We just love you, Amy, and you're such an open book. You're refreshingly honest and real.
So real.
Big fans of your Instagram page, and of course now you've written this book. Is there anything that is off limits for you with what you share?
Listen, 3 years ago I would have said no. Pretty much everything was fair game. My husband knew what he married, so he kind of knew what he was getting into. But I would say now that my kids have grown up a little bit, I tend to hold back talking about them as much as I used to. Like when they were 1 and 2 and 3 and they're toddlers, and you know, Bobby was affectionately nicknamed Malat after the serial killer. Like it was all a coping mechanism for me. Like I used to write about it and try and laugh off the really hard days. But now that they're at school and they've got their own little lives and their own little friendships, I definitely respect their privacy a whole lot more. And yeah, I don't really talk about them. Like I'll show them on my socials if they want to jump in videos with me and whatnot, but I don't tend to talk about things relating to them. So that's off limits now.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When they're little and you can almost not recognize them because all the little babies look the same, let's be honest, and now they have their own identities. Yeah, I love that.
In their stock standard hospital blanket.
Yes, pink, blue and white. Yep.
Speaking of babies though, one of the funniest chapters in the book is when you talk about your pregnancies. And yeah, Kerry and I were just talking about that before because Kerry wasn't a big fan of pregnancy
I
either.
didn't love being pregnant.
But it's hard to admit that out loud, girls.
And you feel like you should love being pregnant because you're glowing and no, I wasn't. I wasn't at all.
And you know what? I actually feel like this is all my mum's fault because before I'd ever fallen pregnant, she just gave it an absolutely glowing rap. Oh, it was the best time of my life. I still to this day, she talks about it. She loves being pregnant. And so I actually set myself up for failure because I actually went in thinking it was going to be amazing and beautiful. And don't get me wrong, it is an absolute blessing to be able to carry a child. And, I didn't have any struggles. But, oh my God, I actually think walking in with such high expectations and wanting to loving it ruined the whole experience for me because it was not enjoyable. And all three of them were so different. I was like, maybe the next one will be great, and it was worse. And then the third just ruined my entire life. So yeah, I absolutely hate being pregnant, but I love my children.
Being a mum. Yeah.
But I think it has to be refreshing for other women to hear that because pregnancy is not a cruisy ride for everyone. And you don't sugarcoat anything about the chaos of mum life, and it's fabulous. But more people need to just don't pretend, oh no, I love it, it's amazing, because that's what you think you need to do. Be honest. I struggled. I did not love being pregnant.
Oh, 100%. I had one of my best friends, she struggled with IVF for 5 years. And then when she fell pregnant, she had a horrendous pregnancy. And she's like, oh, but I can't talk about how bad it is. I was like, you absolutely can. Like the two things can coexist together. Like you can be so grateful that you're pregnant and also be struggling at the same time. It doesn't make you ungrateful or a bad person. You're just speaking your truths and being open and honest. And I always found that being vulnerable on a social media platform and being really honest about my experiences allowed other people to be like, oh, it's okay to also talk about mine and just open up the conversation. Really, it doesn't mean that we're ungrateful or that we're bad parents or bad mothers. Like obviously we all love our children and we're all incredibly grateful, but we're still allowed to not enjoy the experience.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's hard. Now,
Absolutely.
We had Jenna read that very fun excerpt from your book.
It's one of those spit your tea out of your mouth moments when I read that, because it was like hard relate, actually.
Yeah.
And we know a lot changes when you become a mum.
Yes.
You being so open about your sex life, how did you get that over the line with Ryan? Is he okay with that?
He is completely fine with it, which I actually think that a lot of men wouldn't be. But he's known, like my sense of humor and my personality has never really changed. I remember just being an oversharer from even in school. Like I remember announcing to my class that I'd got my period in year 7 and I went to a co-ed school and I'm sure no one cared.
The boys would have been horrified.
Yeah, horrified. But I was, and so I think Ryan, he knew what he was in for when we met and when we got together. And I always used to just write really honestly about things on socials, even when I didn't have a following. And so it wasn't like as my platform grew, he started saying, oh, you can't say that, or you can't say that. He's always been my biggest champion, and he knows what I'm like, and he's never tried to get me to sugarcoat anything or stifle my flame, and he's fine with the oversharing.
Love that.
So
partnership.
The excerpt that I read obviously covers how the sex life died down after the kids. Tell us a little bit about that time in your life, Amy.
Yeah, funnily enough, every time I do a podcast or go on live TV, they always like to talk about the sex chapter. And I think that is because not a lot of people
are up for
do
that.
feel comfortable talking about it, right? But, and it's funny, and I actually jumped on Today Extra. This is when the book first came out, and David was like, "Oh, talk to me about sex. The sex after having 3 kids in 4 years." And I'm an oversharer at the best of times, but when I'm very nervous, it's all like that's my default is to just share it all and to go to the gutter. And obviously I was on live TV, so I was like, shit, none of this can get edited out. So I just said, look, the best I can explain it is, I had all 3 kids, all vaginal births. The first time I had sex with Ryan, it honestly, it felt like feeding a Tic Tac to a whale. And I was like, I feel like that's the nicest way
What an analogy.
to paint the picture. It was a nice way to paint the picture without being like too dirty and smutty. And it's a nice little visual. And I feel like anyone that's had 3 kids in 4 years will understand what I'm referencing. Yep. Not that Ryan is the size of a Tic Tac, but it was more that I felt like a huge, cavernous, hollow cave. I felt like especially because Kobe was my last baby and he was ginormous. And I felt empty after he came out. I felt like all my organs had been pushed to the walls of the outer shell of my body, and I just felt rather hollow.
Yeah.
So that was the best way I could explain it on live TV.
How was David's
I also read about it in the book. So, yeah, it makes sense, right?
How was David's face as you said that, Amy?
There was a shock, and then there was laughter, and then there was quick cut to an ad break.
Get her off.
Yeah. No, it was fine.
Yeah.
It was, look, I speak about it in not in a self-deprecating way, but just in a very realistic way. My sex life completely just disappeared after I had 3 children. It wasn't that I felt quite foreign in my own body, but my libido was well and truly gone. And it took a long time for me to even be remotely horny again. Like I would be intimate with Ryan in other ways, which I speak really openly about, but I wanted to share my experience, and I've done it on the socials before I even wrote the book, because I want to be able to advocate for women to say that it's okay to not want to bang your husband 4 times a month after having so many kids. Like that is normal. I actually don't know a single woman who has even 1 or 2 kids that wants to saddle up on the pony multiple times a week. Like it's just, it's not a thing that happens. And you know what, if it does in your life, your husband's a lucky man. But I just wanted to share my own personal lived-in experiences in the hope that it helps other women probably going through the same thing feel less alone and know that it's pretty normal. And I didn't really get my mojo, let's call it, back until Kobe was like 2 years old. And I started finally getting a little bit of myself back and having some time to myself.
Makes a difference, doesn't it? Because you've got toddlers hanging off of you. You've got babies hanging. You're being touched all day.
Oh, yep.
You don't want to get more touching.
More touch. Yeah, exactly. I felt like for 5 or 6 years, I was pregnant and then breastfeeding and then pregnant and then breastfeeding and then pregnant and breastfeeding. So I felt like my body hadn't really belonged to me for so many years that, like, the pre-children Amy, she was a bit of a, like, she loved having sex with Ryan and she was always keen to be intimate and stuff, but she was long gone. Like she was, I don't know where she went. I feel like that version of myself died and a new version started with motherhood. And it just took me a little time to find my feet and find my purpose and and get grounded with who I was and how comfortable I felt in my new body.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a process. And I think you have to kind of ride out those seasons together as husband and wife.
Totally. Kerry, we've spoken about this before. And I don't know if you had a similar experience, Amy. I almost actually feel like you're describing my life, by the way.
She's living our lives completely.
I have three boys.
Yes.
obstetrician's appointment after
Yes.
having the babies. Obstetrician says,
6 weeks
have you
after.
had sex with the husband yet? What do you want for contraception? And I'm looking at her still bleeding. It's just, it's of course that's not what I'm thinking about. And
not a question you would have been expecting
no.
after your first baby. You
And
go
to
in
be honest-
prepared for second and third, but
To be
you're
honest
not.
with you, we basically only had sex when we were trying to make another baby because that was all I cared about. So, yeah. Anyway, hard relate. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, no worries, anytime. I'm right there with you on the just purely having sex as a transaction to make child.
My friends were
was
like,
me with
you do
Bobby.
realise you have to have sex to have baby, Jenna.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah. Damn it.
My babies are IVF, so I didn't even need to.
Oh,
Didn't feel like I needed to put out. So.
But I always wondered about that. Is there like a ceremonial bang after you've done an... Do you know what I mean? Like I've always wondered...
There might be. There wasn't for me, but there might be.
I just wonder if people honour that with a little, let's...
Let's pretend that we did this the
Yeah,
normal
let's pretend
way.
like we did this. Yeah.
Didn't
Maybe.
think of that. Maybe that was my undoing.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Now, Amy, we've all been there before we become a mum. You know, my kid's going to eat everything I cook for them. They're not going to have
yeah.
screen time, all of that. Then we become mums. Doesn't it all change? How do you balance things?
Isn't it so funny that we all think that we're like going to be the world's best parent and then we actually become one?
And we're not the
I
best.
find it, like if I could go back in time and give my pre-childrenless self an uppercut, wow, I would. Because I was real judgy. I was a bit of a dickhead and thought that I could do everything better than all of the other parents that I could see, you know, obviously not parenting their children well enough. I balance it by being realistic and picking my battles. Obviously, no one wants to feed their kids Maccas every day during the week, right? Is it convenient? Yes. Is it super nutritious? No.
But are they being fed? Yes, they are.
That's right. But I feel like it's all about picking your battles with children. And sometimes screen times is an absolute necessity. And sometimes they have to sit in front of a TV for 8 hours a day. Like sometimes when you're sick and you're cook, like I remember when I was pregnant with my third and I was so unwell, Annabelle Carmel basically fed my children for 8 months and Bluey and Peppa Pig parented them. Because I could barely move off the couch. I was so nauseous and ill and all of the things. And I used to get riddled with guilt over it. But then I was like, I'm just purely in survival mode right now. And it's all about picking your balance, like picking your battles, I think, and finding a balance somehow. I'll be like, okay, cool. They're going to have another packaged meal. I'll feed them some carrot sticks with their lunch.
But also, where's the village we were promised? You know, if iPad has to parent for a little while, I mean, where's my village?
Where is the village? Honestly, I feel like in Australia, we do it all wrong. Like not that I know much about what happens in other cultures, but I do know like overseas and stuff, you have women surrounding you. Like, well, I don't know which culture it's in, but I know, is it in China or something that literally the woman gives birth and then goes and just heals for 30 days while the mum and the sisters and the grandparents and the aunts and everything look after the child and they just bring it in for food. And I was like, wow.
30 days to yourself.
It's 40,
40 days.
Yeah.
So
first 40
it's that
days.
Fourth trimester.
Yeah. It's pretty magic actually to
Wow.
think about that. And they all make these healing broths and deliver it. I mean,
Where's my broth?
I was still
Where's
having to
my
cook
broth?
for the family. So anyway.
I needed the broth. And I needed someone to wash my hair.
I
It
know.
didn't get washed for weeks.
Can we have a moment for our incredible partners, Harrison McMillan?
We love everything they stand for, Jenna. So let us share why this top recruitment firm decided to sponsor our podcast about motherhood.
Well, the name Harrison McMillan comes from their founders' mothers' maiden names, chosen to reflect their core belief to always conduct business in a manner that would make their mothers proud.
Their leadership team is female-led, and with 7 kids between them, they truly understand the act of balancing motherhood and work.
They're passionate about placing professionals, including working mothers, in roles that acknowledge and support their transition back into the workforce.
And they've seen firsthand how mums can smash productivity goals. There is truly no one more capable than a multitasking mum.
Harrison McMillan was started 11 years ago on the back of an idea and has grown into a well-respected agency with 30 employees.
They service over 500 clients all over Australia and are well known for their trustworthiness, accountability, innovation and people-first approach.
It's a match made in heaven if you ask me, Kez.
It is so important that your values align with where you work, and that's why your business should visit harrisonmcmillan.com.au. Amy, sharing photos of your kids online. You mentioned earlier when they were younger, you shared anything and everything. You're much more aware of their privacy now.
Yes.
Do they ask to be, what's on? I've got an 8-year-old daughter and she's forever, can I have a look at your Instagram? No.
Yeah.
You don't need to look at my Instagram because I don't know what you're then looking at as you go down the rabbit hole.
Correct.
But she's so fascinated by it.
Yeah. And this is it's a really interesting topic. And I don't know if you've seen this campaign. It's the 36 months. It's that campaign that Whippers kind of got behind. And I am in absolute support of that. So 2 parts to this answer. Yeah, my kids know what I do. And so they know that there's, I create content for brands, and they know that mummy does funny reels on Instagram and stuff like that. My daughter, none of my children are wallflowers. My daughter loves to be photographed. So there's a lot of, take a photo of me, mum. My boys, the boys couldn't care less. I actually don't if I ever do take a photo of them, I say, are you happy for mummy to put this on my Instagram? They are fine with it. I've actively chosen, like if I do put any photos up of them now, it'll be family shots or stuff like that. My daughters, there's only one of them. My daughter would love to have bloody TikTok and all of that, but it's a hard no from me. They do have iPads, which they are only allowed to use on the weekends, and it's for schoolwork basically. And then they've got an hour, and they play Roblox or they watch YouTube Kids. Social media for me, for young kids, is a hard no. Yeah. I just think, especially as teenagers, like I think about myself as a teenager. And what I went through, like, being redhead with freckles and stuff like that, and like the little taunts that I would cop at school. I remember them rattling me, when you're 13, 14 and your hormones are peaking, everything is such a big deal and everything is dramatized and all of that kind of stuff. And there was bullying, like there would be, soft bullying from my brothers, and I would give it back, but like it would upset you. And I just think to myself, but I would never have fitted the mold of what was deemed as conventionally pretty. Like I wasn't blonde, blue eyes or anything like that. I was a little bit chubby as well around the edges, bit of puppy fat before I got my period. I would have never matched up to, other girls on the internet. I don't want that for my kids. Like I absolutely think when they are pubescent and when their hormones are fluctuating, I would hate for them to be comparing themselves online or looking at what, bloody TikTok or Instagram or whatever.
It's so warped.
It is so confronting, and it's just controversial. I would never want them to be online comparing themselves, or just especially at such a vulnerable age in their life. Yeah. Even I was reading up about this whole petition, and I've signed it, that Whippers like really promoting, and I'm absolutely going to share it and get behind it as well. But I was like, I don't even think 16, you can't control the narrative, right? But 16 is obviously a better start than there being 13. No laws around it. But there was no such thing as social media up until, I think maybe, how old am I? It must have been like 18, 19.
Yeah, we're so lucky.
And lucky.
Yeah, it was MySpace, which we've spoken about in the past, and then Facebook.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I was in my working life by the time Facebook came along. School was done. My party years were done.
Yes.
Thank goodness, because
Oh, man.
But
the
you remember
photos
back
that
in
could have
those days,
surfaced of me.
you actually uploaded every single photo from your digital camera
you had to
from the night
you had
out.
to
Like, why did we do that? What were we thinking?
Yeah. I would get a digital camera, me and my girlfriend, and we would go out clubbing when we were 23, and we would take 24 shots just of our face in different locations. And then I'd upload the whole film, I'd get it all digital, I'd attach it to my computer, and then I'd upload an album to my Facebook. It's just the same photo
Saturday
in
night.
different locations.
But I've even had nights out where it was pre-digital cameras, because I'm going to show my age now, and we would have to then take the film in and hope that nothing too embarrassing was on the film, and then you go and pick up the photos from the Photoshop, and they'd kind of give you a little smile of, "Oh, you had a good night, didn't you?"
Yeah. I think about, like, if I couldn't even, I would be doomed. Like, I've passed out in fields before, when you're underage drinking, and then in your early teens. Like, I am just so grateful that camera phones didn't exist back then.
Yes.
You had your Nokia, your 3210, you could play Snake. That was about it.
That's it.
There's
And
no
even
incriminating-
when the phones with cameras came out, they were bad with the
Quality
quality,
was so shit.
all
Yeah.
pixelated, and so thankfully, even if there were photos, who is
know.
that? What are they doing?
Just untag yourself. Amy,
Yeah, that's right.
your community that you've built seems really largely supportive. You don't cop nasty comments often or anything like that, no?
No, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, every now and again I will get like a troll who, like, I've been called a bogan, I've been called an alcoholic, all things that at surface levels that doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I would say 99% of women on the platform are just so lovely and so supportive. You're always going to get disgruntled people. I had a lady, I hadn't replied to her messages, and when I did finally get to them, she'd been messaging me for quite some time. But that's not because I'm actively choosing to ignore you. It's physically just, I don't have enough minutes in my day to be able to reply to everybody. I want to be able to put my phone down and be present with my family when I'm at home. So I have to put up some boundaries. And unfortunately for her message would have been at the top and then getting buried. And anyway, she turned a bit sour on me and kind of took some dog shots about my kids, and she told me that Ryan was fat, and just really like surface level stuff that does not bother me.
But I suppose the thing I'm illustrating is you have a thick skin, so you can handle that. But your little
13-year-olds don't.
That's right. That stuff would impact you more.
That's exactly right. And I also think there would be women who get trolled far worse than I do. And even as adults, it upsets you. You can have 99 people saying the loveliest things, and then one person can come out and call you a really nasty name or say something that's going to hurt you. And as humans, we do this really bizarre, unhealthy thing where we fixate on that one negative comment, and we're like, why? How can I fix this? How can I change her opinion? When realistically, it's a them issue. Yeah, it's a them issue. But the thing is, I don't feel like children have the ability to, be able to reflect and have the emotional maturity to say, that's a them issue. Let's not give that our energy and our time.
Yeah.
That would upset any young kid. And that's why I think it is so scary, and, whatever we can do to help prevent them from going into that world at such a young age, the better, I think.
Yeah.
I love you talking about the boundaries too, because I think that's actually going to be how we model this new world for our kids.
Yes.
If we can show them, put
Phones
it down. No phones at the dinner table. It's going to help them when they do finally get their own. They know that we're not I have an unhealthy relationship with my phone, but you have to make you don't want your kids to see you like this all the time.
Yeah. And I've been called out by my kids. They're 8 and 6, and they have absolutely called me out on it before, that, you're always looking at your phone. I'm doing work on it though. But
I know
it breaks your heart because that's not who I want to be. That's not the mum I want to be. But I've got to reply to this email, or no, I don't. My child is physically in front of me.
I know.
The email can wait a couple of minutes. What is it that you'd like to say? I need to get better.
I had to check myself yesterday because I got home and I had just been driving all over Sydney. So I spent a really nice night away with my mum. And I want to be really present with my mum. Like, they live 2 hours away from me now. So when my husband actually booked this really nice night away for us for Mother's Day. And my mum's not on socials, and she's retired and whatnot. So I wanted to be really present and enjoy my time with her. So I put my phone down. And it's funny because I just had the most wonderful 12 hours with her. We just walked along the beach and we spoke and we chatted and we had a nice meal, and I braided her hair and we watched Bridgerton, and it was just so lovely.
Wholesome.
But yeah, it was really wholesome. But my emails were just piling up, and then I had to drive all the way into Sydney. And anyway, I got home yesterday and I had like so much unanswered work to do and get back to, and I had like brand stuff that I had to reply to, and I was sitting on my bed because I was trying to furiously type away. And it's almost like, because I'm not in an office on a laptop and I'm just at home and I was sitting relaxed on my bed, it sends a really bizarre message to my kids, because even though I've had the conversation that this is mummy's work,
the lines are blurred.
I'm sure it doesn't look like that to them. And then Charlie was like, can you help me with my speech? She's got a speech. And I said, yeah. I just need to send this email. She kept coming back and she kept coming back. And the email was taking me so much longer. I had to go back and cross-reference all this stuff. And then I was like, wait, I need, like, it was 6:30 at night. Like, I need to help her. And then I'll get to this email, because these people had gone home from work anyway. I can do this after she's gone to bed. So it was a moment for me, but it's hard. Like, we've tried to put this thing in place at the moment now where when we sit down at dinner, like, my kids are finally old enough now that we can all sit down and have dinner together, because before, when Ryan doesn't get home normally till like 7:30, and I feed the kids at 5:30. So they would always eat on their own. And then Ryan and I would eat later. But Ryan's on gardening leave at the moment. And it's so funny because he's had like 6 weeks off. And so every night now we've been sitting down as a family, putting our phones away, turning off the TV and everything, and sitting down with family. And we do this thing where we talk about one good thing that went on in our day and one bad thing that we would, wish had happened differently. And so now it's my middle child. He's like, Mom, come and sit down. Like, we're going to do our tradition. And so, like, it's really sweet. And I think it's just about making small little changes, to kind of foster that closeness as a family. And again, with the boundaries, because I'm hopeless at it as well. And I feel like it's this instant gratification. Like, if I'm bored, I just pick up my phone instead of like looking around and having a conversation with my kids. And if I'm doing that, then I feel like, well, they're little sponges. They just literally copy everything I do. Yeah. And so it's something that, exactly what you said, like, it's something that we have to do and, show and lead them the way. And it's, again, it's something I'm working on, because I have definitely not got it right yet either.
We'll get there somehow.
Yeah.
This campaign, though, is certainly a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And, I've signed the petition, and
I
think 13-year-old Kerry would not have survived.
Hopefully it
makes a life of social media.
Makes a difference.
Oh, God.
You're
13.
renovating as well, just to add another thing to your list.
Why not?
Yeah.
Crazy girl.
Not busy enough?
No, I love to push myself to the limits. No. It's so funny. I really burnt out last year. The book was so much harder again than I anticipated. It's me just going in to all these things with rose-colored glasses on, thinking, yeah, it's gonna be great. I love writing. That was like a pregnancy. It was like a 9-month pregnancy, and it was so hard, and it kept me up late at night, and I was worried about it, and I was second guessing myself. Anyway, and then I did the Rise and Wine. I did the Rise and Wine event last year, and anyway, burnt out massively last year. Set some boundaries in place. Said going into 2024, I want to, have a bit more of a balance. So I said no to so much work in January and February and then March. And then I was like, right, renovations were always kicking off start of April. I probably need to start earning some money and helping contribute to the renos and whatnot. So I started saying yes to all these jobs. And then everything just went from nothing to 100% all over again. So the 1st of April, my book launch kicked off, the renos kicked off, all of this content work that I kicked off. I took on the podcasting, kicked back up with myself, and then the parenting one with Jen. And it was all or nothing. So yeah, the renos are slightly stressful. Everybody did tell me that whatever the budget is, double it. Whatever the builder has said that you need to be out of the house, double that. And so far, everything's coming true. Yeah, so we found termites. The whole aircon in the entire house needed to be redone. So, I mean, that was just like an extra 25 grand that we hadn't factored in. But I think it's going to be worth it. It's going to look amazing. And I think it needed to be done. It needed to have our stamp put on it because...
Of course, this is the house that you grew up in, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. It was my mum and dad's home. It was my childhood home. And Ryan and I were essentially banging in my parents' room. So that was weird. And we just needed to change the narrative there and make it our house.
Yeah. But this circles back to you wanting to give your kids that innocent, simplistic life that you had as a child. And I just love that you bought your parents' house so you could actually do that. We all have that dream. If only I could raise my kids in the 90s, it was just so much better. Yeah. But I feel like you're kind of finding a way to make that sort of happen in a way.
Yeah, I just remember that that street, and not so much the house. Like the house is great and it's a great layout. It's freezing cold. It's like a morgue. But also the backyard and that view and just when I think about my childhood, I think about just always being outside, jumping in the pool, riding my bike in the cul-de-sac, running through sprinklers, and just being a kid, building caves, just being outdoors. And the last couple of places that we had been living in, we were either on busy roads or there was no young families around. And so every time I would go and visit my mom and dad with my kids, I was like, I used to say to Ryan, this street is what I want for my kids. Like I want them to have the childhood that I had because it got me off the devices. It got me outdoors. It got us using our imaginations and doing all that kid stuff that I feel like kids aren't leaning into as much these days.
And look at the memories that it creates. Like the memories that you still have now, decades later, of that childhood. If you just spent your childhood on a device...
I wouldn't have them.
No.
That's exactly right. And so did my dad do us a deal and look after me as his only daughter? Absolutely not. Did he charge me overs for that house? Sure. But would I pay it all over again in a heartbeat? Absolutely. Because it's exactly what I was hoping it would do. And that is get my kids outside.
Love that.
At the moment, we're in a rental property because we're just, it's easier and hopefully quicker for our renos to get done whilst we're not living there. And we're currently in a rental property, which is on a really steep hill on a main road, and there are no kids around. And all my kids are doing is sitting inside watching TV, or they're like playing, Bobby's got a Switch, or they're literally watching TV. And it's just reiterating to me, thank God I bought that house, because when we're there, I don't even see them, which sounds somewhat neglectful, but honestly, we get home from school and they just disappear into the street. And I think there's like 13 kids in the street, and they build jumps down the road, and they're making dances. Like Charlie runs off with the girls and they're doing dances in the front yards or doing cartwheels, and the boys are riding their bikes, or they're just jumping from house to house, swimming in the pools. And it's everything I wanted for them. So it's absolutely paid off. And now we're just making the house more our kind of style.
Yeah.
So we're ticking boxes.
Love that. Can I ask how you make time for you in amongst all of this? I think this is something probably all of us struggle with as well, but as mums, we just give all of ourselves to everybody else.
Everyone.
And it's so important to somehow, even though you get the guilt, to somehow find a little bit of space and time for yourself.
I do it. I fill my cup up by spending time with my girlfriends. And I love my husband, don't get me wrong, but I feel like in order for me to really recharge my batteries, I need to remove myself from the family home. And I often will lock in, a dinner, even if it's like a midweek dinner. And, half the time my kids are in bed. So I'm still doing all the mumming and I'm still putting them to bed. And then after they've gone to bed, I'll duck off and I will just have a catch up with a girlfriend. And it's just, I don't know, it fills my cup up. It's nice to step away from the family home. I also don't mind a long boozy lunch with girlfriends followed into some sort of dance floor scenario.
That sounds
I love to dance.
Right up my alley.
Yeah. And I have a husband who is incredibly supportive of that, which makes life easier, just as I am with him. I absolutely know how imperative it is to spend time with your mates. And so he will often go away, like bunch of his friends, they often will get like a house down in Gerard, down on the south coast, and they'll go down for a weekend and they play cricket and they do like a Korean barbecue and they drink loads and way too much beer. But they just hang out with mates and they do blokey stuff. And so often I'll lock in a girls' lunch where we can go down and, I don't know, get dressed up and just not be mums for the day. And it's really nice. And then we'll go out dancing. And you know what? We'll look like the oldest people there. We look like Stifler's mum, like prehistoric dinosaurs roaming the dance floor, but we also don't care. Yeah. We're just there to have a good time. And I feel like it's a really good thing. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, right, my batteries are fully charged again. I'm good.
The Stifler's mum comment just set me off. Have you seen on TikTok all of the Gen Z, you got to wear crew socks now and the ankle socks are out and, you're showing your age with a side part and all of this stuff?
Oh, gosh, I've got no
Any
hope.
of that impacting you? Because I'm feeling all self-conscious with my ankle socks.
Honestly, you can't listen to the Gen Z. Like, honestly, you just got to do you, whatever you want to do. Like my girlfriend feeds into it. She's like, you can't wear ankle socks anymore, Amy. And I was like, oh, sorry, my sock drawer is just filled with ankle socks. All I do is a side part. So Gen Z can beat it. Yeah. I also whatever makes you happy.
How dare they with those low rise jeans?
Oh,
you
my
can't
belly
have
button
3 kids and then wear low rise jeans. Talk to me after you're a mum, Gen Z.
High rise
That's
or nothing.
exactly right. My belly button looks like a bit of saggy foreskin. Like, that does not need to be put on show.
For everyone.
Covered up.
Oh,
sorry.
So funny. I just love that.
Rated.
Do you know what also I loved? One of your stories the other day, you had just dropped your kids off to school. You set up your phone and you just went, and you just lost it. And I thought, I can relate to that too.
Most mornings.
I actually, it's so funny because I was just doing stories and then everyone was like, please, can you make this a reel so I can send it to my husband? And I was like, I mean, sure. It was, when you have those chaotic mornings with your kids, like.
That's every morning.
I have this thing, I just can't wrap my head around it. Every single morning I have to fight them to get dressed, to put their socks on, just the basic human necessities, like in order for them to go to school. It's not like I'm asking them something new or asking them to, run up the hill or anything. It's just, we put our shoes and socks on every single morning, and every single morning you fight me on it. Yes. And I said, it's good to just, once they get out of the car, maybe you've gone and you've bought yourself a coffee or whatever it is, you just need like 5 minutes to decompress. And then you have to scream the F word multiple times just at your steering wheel, obviously, because you can't scream it at your kids. Just get it all out. Get all of the F words out.
But you feel so much better.
Don't you ever? Yeah.
Therapeutic.
You're ready for
Sure
the day
is.
ahead until school pickup.
It comes
Correct.
around too fast too, that school pickup.
School
Can I
pickup,
just
it
say
does.
that?
Yeah, it does.
I basically just get home and then it's like, oh,
Off we go again.
That's exactly right. Long gone are the preschool days where you can drop them off at 8 and pick them up at 4.
Yes.
Those extra 2 hours, I felt like that was an extra 5 hours in the day. 9 and 3, ruthless.
Yeah, 100%. I hear you, Amy. What a
Yeah.
refreshing chat.
yeah.
I think so many, you've certainly validated for me a lot of things that I think and feel.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if Amy feels it, it's okay that I feel it. It's all
Yeah.
good. So
It's okay.
thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being so open and honest with us. Right
you.
back at the very start, you gave us spontaneous as your word
Yes.
to describe you pre-children.
Yes.
Can you give us one word to describe the person you are now that you have got children? Mum Amy.
Confident.
Oh,
Good one.
that is
Yeah.
lovely.
Mm.
You've just found yourself.
I absolutely did, but also I just realized that I having children and becoming a mother really put so much into perspective for me. And I realized that the people, all that matters are the people in my family, my friends and my family, they are who matter. And the thoughts and opinions of others don't really matter to me. And it's really nice living without any inhibitions and not worrying about what other people think. I do. I feel really confident and secure in who I am as a woman now.
Oh, so lovely.
Perfect.
Your kids are lucky to have you, and we're so lucky that you
Mhm.
gave us some time today to chat. It was amazing. Thank you so
It was
much.
so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll pop the link to all of your amazing stuff and
Yes.
your amazing book, and you can pick up a copy
Clown.
that doesn't have.
I read it twice,
Uh,
Amy. It was so good. I went back for seconds.
So good. I want to actually have a read of it again. I feel like I wrote it like last year and I just put it to bed, gave birth to it, and then I actually would love to go back and reread it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, and obviously once you read it, you can confirm that you did in fact find your sex life again. So
There we
go
go.
you, go Ryan.
And you didn't have to go to
me.
Mexico
Lucky
to find
Ryan.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much for joining us on How Motherhood Changed Me. We'd love you to be part of the conversation by connecting with us on social media. And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe.